Welcome to the Worry Free Podcast by Event Resources. I'm Lee Simmons. How do you know if you need a stage at your next event? And why is it maybe more important than you think? Are all stages the same? How big does it need to be? How tall does it need to be? And do you need a ramp for it? These are all good questions, and we have the right person to answer them. Joining me for this discussion today is Event Resources, Billy Montgomery. Billy, we get calls and emails often of saying that, do I really need a stage for my event? Why do we say we think so?
You want to elevate the speaker or the presenter for your event, right, and make them the focal point. You want to make sure that your guests see who's up there speaking, and it makes the location feel a little special.
How big does it need to be? Because there's different sizes, they're all modular pieces. So how do you know what the right size, how big does it need to be?
That all depends. I think where we would start with that is how many people are you going to have on your stage at one time? Is it one speaker? Is it 10 people that are going to be up there seated? And then we will start to go down the list of what else is going to be on stage. Is it going to be just a lectern and a speaker? Are there going to be tables? Are they handing out awards? Are there maybe flags, or we do a draped backdrop, something else like that? We'll also take safety into consideration to make sure that it's adequate size, to make sure nobody's going to fall off or feel unsafe if they take a step away from the lectern or people are up there moving around.
How does the location play into that as well? Meaning if you're in this massive tent or this big convention center, something like that, but there might only be one or two people speaking at a time, how does that space play into a factor?
I think it helps to dictate the size that the stage should be. An 8x8 stage in a massive ballroom is going to feel minuscule. So even if there's only one or two people up on stage and there's very little movement, we might opt to build or have a slightly larger stage so that it feels adequate.
Stages can be different heights. Tell us about that.
So again, this plays into a little bit of our location. If it's a big room, you might want a little bit of a taller stage. If you have low ceilings, then obviously we can't do a stage so tall where people can't stand up on there, right? So that will play into it. Also, are the guests standing or are they seated? That makes a big difference. One thing that we are very adamant about is once we go over 24 inches tall, we have to put rails on it. It's a safety thing. We really don't like to flex on that. It's very important to us.
And it's important to note, we're very particular about that. There are certainly some venues that have stages who may not follow that for whatever the reason may be, but that is a them decision versus a decision whoever has that stage, right?
Right. And we've actually been in venues where the client would ask to not have railings, and they are made to sign a contract that says, hey, we're okay with this.
Right. And talking about locations, how does the space also play into the other things needed for the stage, the other elements that are a part of the stage?
So stairs don't take up a ton of room, but you want to make sure that you have them in the right location on the stage, right? But we're also build a good number of ramps on our stages, so you have to make sure that you have enough space for that as well.
Let's talk about the ramps. Why are they needed? And if they are needed, how does that play a factor into it?
Well, I mean, if you have anybody who can't use the stairs, who needs the ramp, then obviously that's a necessity for the event. If one person needs it, then you've got to have it, period. But one thing that we are very stringent on is how we build the ramps. 1 inch of elevation of the stage equals 1 foot of run of the ramp. So a 16-inch tall stage needs a 16-foot long ramp.
So you got to make sure you have the space to do that.
Exactly. But, and I know where you're going with this, it doesn't have to be just in a straight line. We can do an L shape, we can do a U shape, we can put multiple landings or turnarounds in the ramp as needed.
Do you need to have the ramp on both sides of the stage?
It's not necessary. It all depends on what you're going for the aesthetic. If it's something like a large graduation, you might want to opt to have a ramp on either side because you've got students coming up and then across down the other. You know, you don't want a traffic jam for people coming up and trying to go back down the same ramp. If it's only 1 or 2 people coming up, then one ramp would be more than sufficient.
And one thing with the ramps that we've had many conversations on is, well, just one person needs it. So take a graduation. Well, we're going to have everybody go up the stairs except for this one person. Why maybe that isn't the best decision, and maybe you should just use the ramp for everybody?
It might look a little out of place. That person might feel a little ostracized. Especially in today's day and age, moving towards equality for all, making sure that it's accessible for anybody who wants to use it. That's important to us.
There's sometimes we'll have a conversation and the client says, the venue has a stage. When is it appropriate to use the venue stage or have someone like us bring in our stage?
Well, first I would say do a site visit and take a look at the equipment for yourself. We have been in venues where the stage that they have is 2x6s in plywood and some carpet stapled on. Does it work? Yeah, it might get the job done, but is it the best looking thing or the safest thing? To be determined. I would say if it's a brand name equipment, then it's probably on the safer side. But again, it all depends on what your needs are for the event.
And I think that leads into my next point is, we really pride ourselves on the quality, making sure it's safe, making sure it's aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Why is that important?
Well, if you have somebody walking across the stage, you don't want the stage decks to be shifting underneath their feet. If somebody trips, you want to make sure that there's enough space or safety rails on there for them to catch themselves. It's an important thing that people, probably important people for this organization or this event, are going to be up on this platform. It's important that it's safe.
What are some either special or custom things that can be added to make the stage just a little extra special?
So if it's inside, then we advocate for carpeting the stage. It makes it look a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer. Another thing that we like to do, or that we always do, is we skirt the stage, but to go with your event colors or your organization colors, we might do a different color skirting, or a banner across the front of the stage that's got your organization name or something related to the event on there. Something else that we can do is a bump out for, say, a lectern or a speaker to be out in front while there's other things on the stage behind them. We also do fashion shows. A good example of one is a fashion show that we do every year for UHeart. And it's a large rectangular stage, but the students design the layout of the stage decks, and so it leaves some openings and some different paths for the models to walk. It's a really cool design aspect.
And I think when we do a few different types of fashion shows, the width, talk about safety, making sure it's wide enough that people are crossing too. And talk about the material for those fashion shows.
Yeah, so twofold on that. One of the things that we make sure is that it's no less than 6 feet wide for a fashion show to make sure that there's enough room for two people to pass each other safely. And also we do stage coverings like vinyl, which is a nice shiny aesthetic appearance. Typically white because it's nice and clean looking. And I think it really elevates the event.
We can also put some staging, some unique places. You want to talk about the one specifically we do often at the Society Room, how we can do that?
Yeah, so it's a band stage that is over bar height, but on their bar they have beer taps. And so what we'll do is we'll build the stage up and around the beer taps and leave a hole. And then over that hole we build a drum riser that's oversized, of course, but it elevates it enough so that it covers the taps in a creative way. And so you don't really know that it's a bar when there's a band up there playing for whatever your event is.
Right, and the reason that venue that's pretty popular is to maximize space.
Right.
The stage is taking up a spot on the floor. Well, now there, at least it's taking up over the bar and freeing up space.
And they have such high ceilings that going up in elevation really isn't an impactful factor because, there's a whole open second floor there.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Billy. And thank you for tuning in to the Worry Free podcast by Event Resources. We hope you found this discussion about stages valuable for your next event. If you decide you need one, what size, and can I be creative in that process? Now you have those answers. Thank you again for watching the Worry Free podcast by Event Resources.